of Iran's most important nuclear facilities. Satellite images showed multiple destroyed buildings at Natanz. We can only see damage at the surface level. Part of the facility is located several floors underground and can likely only be targeted by heavy bunker buster bombs that Israel doesn't have in its arsenal. The United Nations nuclear watchdog chief said that some above-ground uranium enrichment facilities and electrical infrastructure at Natanz were destroyed. The strikes also caused radiological and chemical contamination inside facilities at Natanz, though no leaks have been detected externally. Israel confirmed that it carried out strikes on other Iranian nuclear facilities, including Isfahan, which is home to 3 Chinese research reactors. Satellite imagery shows some destruction at the Isfahan facility. U.S. officials said Washington was not involved in Israel's offensive strikes. However, an official told Business Insider that American sea and land-based forces played a role in helping defend Israel from the Iranian retaliatory missile strikes. Israeli officials said the strikes on Friday aimed to degrade Iran's nuclear program in order to prevent the country from making a weapon. Tehran has said that its nuclear ambitions are civilian. Iran has retaliated by launching missiles and drones at Israel. The Israeli attack raises the risk of plunging the region into more violence and could derail the Trump administration's efforts to reach a new nuclear deal with Iran.
Now, people state that there will never be peace in the Middle East because they're basing their, comments and statements off of the Bible, that there'll never be peace in the Middle East, supposedly. And now that the American government, or America, the country, or Americans altogether, we're in this war, whether we like it or not, hopefully that the retaliation of Iran doesn't reach U.S. borders, U.S. land. That's the most important thing. They may hit strategic targets that we have within the region. They may hit some of our allies in retaliation. Hopefully they don't attack America homeland. Now, supposedly they will never be able to penetrate our Iron Dome and our NATO defense missile systems and things of that nature. But nonetheless, they did state that they will retaliate, I also want to show you guys this feed here as well, because CNN's Fred Paginton and his team documented intensified aerial activity over Tehran, intercepted missiles, nighttime anti-aircraft fire, proving Israel strikes are ongoing and visible from major urban areas. And the footage you guys are about to see here shows near empty streets and panic as residents brace for further attacks. As I told you guys many times before, even though these governments are at war with each other, and the reason why I said the government, because people like to incorporate the people, the innocent people of Iran, the innocent people of America, the innocent people of Israel are the ones who are going to suffer the most, unfortunately. Now, if this was to eradicate possible nuclear weapons from being made because we don't trust Iran, the world doesn't trust Iran, a lot of the Western countries have deemed Iran a terrorist state and that they should not have the capabilities and or technology to create nuclear heads. Don't forget the broadcast that don't forget the broadcast on Friday where I told you guys that Russia President Vladimir Putin say that he will give them the technology to make nuclear bombs if America continues to interfere between the conflict between Israel and Iran. But nonetheless, let me guys show you this graphic.
Right here on the area sort of northern central Tehran. We actually went downstairs into a shelter once we heard planes overhead and then we heard explosions. You can see now the sky over the northwest of Tehran is completely filled with smokes. It seemed to us as though it were several really, really strong impacts that took place. And if we look over to the left here, you can see the smoke seems to be emanating from that area. That's more towards the west of Iran, the sort of northwest of Tehran, of the Iranian capital. This is the first time since we've been here that we've seen a heavy airstrike like this in the fairly central part of the city. So we're only going to be able to be up here for not much longer, but this is definitely something that I wouldn't say is unprecedented, but it's definitely something that we haven't seen in the past couple of days, coming, of course, exactly after the Trump administration struck those nuclear facilities, and the Iranians are vowing revenge for that. Of course, the Israelis also continuing their air campaign. And right now, as you can see, the skies over Tehran filled with thick black smoke. Fred Pleitgen, CNN, Tehran.
Iran, possibly Iraq, Yemen, some countries in Africa, North Korea, Russia, India, Turkey. We're talking about places, okay? We're talking about places that are indifferent or non-allies with America, but have relations and or ties with a lot of those countries I named, like India, Russia, Turkey, North Korea, etc. Because don't forget, Russia does business with North Korea, a lot of the African countries that a lot of the Western Europe colonizers wasn't doing business with Africa, but the Russians did. Think about Burkina Faso, right? Ibrahim Traoré went over to Russia. They're helping them build roads and infrastructure and energy and water. Think about their military force. A very small country nonetheless, but Russia is in multiple countries in Africa. And if Russia gets involved with this war with Iran, they're not just coming along. They may have parts of India or parts of Indian military. Again, we have allies as well, but this is something that I do not want. When you start to have multiple countries against multiple countries, it's World War III. Now, people are deeming this as World War III already. Not yet. There is a war going on, but we're not at World War III just yet. And World War III that we're looking at, it may come in very different ways. It may be multiple countries against each other. It may be cyber attacks because we're in a new age of technology and AI and quantum computing, etc. So again, this World War III is not going to be those conventional wars that we're used to. Because don't forget, I even brought up on Friday as well as Saturday about having sleeper cells. There's a lot of Iranian Americans here. And again, I'm not saying that any of them are spies or sleeper cells, but it is a possibility. And I don't want police to go out and start to detain people, or the CIA or the NSA or Homeland Security. I'm not stating that, but it's a possibility. It's a huge possibility, okay? So, but these are some of the things I'm pretty sure our intelligence agency are looking at, maybe possible threats that we already have in the country. So that's something to, look at as well. But I do want to just give you guys a very quick breakdown of my thoughts on this. U.S. intelligence, including Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has stated that there is no definitive proof. There is no definitive proof. There is no definitive proof Iran is building a bomb, even as it enriches uranium. The head of the Ayatollah, Rafael Ghassa, confirmed the agency has found no evidence of any sustained weapons effort. So is this a weapons threat or a civilian program? Let's kind of go down the facts here, folks. I think it's important that we go down some of these facts. No proof of active weapons program, okay, and no proof of a systematic effort by Iran to build a bomb. Enrichment at 60% purity. Iran has stockpiled 409 kilograms of uranium enriched, 60%, just one step below weapons grade. Now, granted, there are still years away of enriching enough uranium to make a bomb. I digress. Capability versus intent. U.S. analysts say Iran has the technical capacity, but has not made the political decision to weaponize. Now, we do have ongoing inspections, but with limits. The IAEA inspectors have access to Natanz, Fordow, and others until Israel strikes begin. Iran has allowed environmental sampling and on-site checks, but it suspended additional protocol inspections, and some access remains undefined. So at one point in time, Iran have given a lot of these Western nations and other nations within the region access to inspect their facilities, but then they started to kind of dial back a lot of their protocols, and some restricting a lot of the access kind of raised red flags and questions about their intentions of making nuclear weapons or not. Now, undeclared material history is important because past investigations uncovered undeclared sites and uranium traces. with Iran reportedly sanitizing these areas. Okay. Now, there's been a lot of things that has been unverified as well as uncertain, especially weaponization activities, because Israel alleges research into triggers and explosive initiation devices, but U.S. intel has confirmed this. Okay, U.S. intel has not confirmed this. And also a lot of what people are stating, undisclosed facilities. Iran may have covert sites where non-declared weaponization work occurs. And again, if you guys see this graphic on your screen here, they're stating that the power plant is here down here in the south in purple, and that the enrichment sites are two of the three sites that we hit, because we also hit Isfahan as well, which here on the dot says research and fuel production. Okay, one of their energy sites. And they also stated that with some sites that were unvisited, Iran could be hiding military grade work beyond the IAEA eyes, stating that they're hiding something. Okay. Now, I don't know if anyone ever talked about this just yet, but there are pros and cons of a U.S. strike. Now, the pros, we have delayed weaponization. A strike could set back uranium enrichment and disrupt operations at Natanz and Fordow. We're talking about signal strength. Supporting Israel may deter Iran and reassure U.S. allies in the volatile region. So this may push Iran back just a little bit. And there have been a lot of people coming out, not against Israel, but just questioning support, the unwarranted support that America has for Israel. Regardless of what Israel does or do, America's there to back them up. And a lot of people are now questioning that support. I think that's a good question. Preemptive security. If Iran secretly pursues a bomb, military actions might prevent a nuclear threshold. But here are the cons. No proof of weapons so far. Intelligence and inspectors report no active weapons program, making attack justified weak. Kind of did this during the Iraq war. Think about this. During Iraq or Iraq, however you want to pronounce it, I was on ground. Weapons of mass destruction. I was on ground. There were reports and mission statements stating that there was weapons of mass destruction. And again, I have to forego and say that, have I ever seen weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? At the current time, I can no longer answer questions of that nature. But now we are in Iran, and they're saying they have possibilities of creating weapons of mass destruction, but there's no proof of weapons. What about the diplomatic fallout? Strikes undermine diplomacy and could derail any attempt to revive the JCPOA or negotiations. We also may have regional escalation. Iran already launched missiles into Israel. U.S. involvement risks broader war with Hezbollah, proxies, or Gulf states. Because don't forget, all these so-called terrorist militias and terrorist states may join in with Iran. ISIS, Al-Qaeda may join in with Hezbollah, with Iran. What about nuclear safety hazards? Strikes on enriched uranium facilities risk radiological release and chemical pollution. Something like hydrofluoric acid. What about that could occur as well? Reinforced resolve. Iran may respond by accelerating nuclear ambitions underground and halting inspections for good. So we'll never know what Iran is up to. But then again, they may have further issues with the world. Now, you see these three dots here on your screen. It says mining and processing. More than likely, the reason why this is important because they're probably mining uranium. Now, when we talk about the IAEA access, now before June 13th, the organization had access to most major sites and was conducting surveillance and environmental sampling. The agency is probing undeclared materials and sites even dating before 2003. Now, some access were denied and those questions still remain, but yet we have no proof of Iran making or trying to attempt to make nuclear warheads or nuclear bombs. Now, when we look at the post-strike situations, you know, the IAEA demands access to, they demand access to, they want access to a lot of facilities to assess the damages and locate uranium stockpiles, especially at Fordow. However, inspections have halted during military operations. We're not going to let you inspect our facility as we're at war. Now, this is a lot to take in, folks, because is this moral, legal, and or strategic? Now, should America strike based on what could be and not what is proven? These are some of the questions I have. Is this the right thing to do? Should America have strike this? And I know half of people are going to say yes, and half of the people are going to say no. We've seen Iran's enrichment program teetering at near weapons grade at 60%. And there are some red flags hidden in facilities, but the IAEA and the U.S. intelligence still say no active bomb effort. We see no evidence. This is what the U.S. is saying. This is what the IAEA is saying. They're stating that we don't see any, we don't have any intelligence of them even attempting to make a bomb. A preemptive strike might delay, but it risks a lot of proliferation, galvanizing Iran's hairlining, destroying fragile diplomacy, and unleashing a regional wildfire. Because when all this is over, would Iran still let international inspectors come and inspect their facilities, or will they now start to make nuclear bombs? Before any boots or bombs are deployed, the world must ask a couple of questions. Have we exhausted oversight and verification? Have we exhausted that? I don't believe so. I don't believe we've exhausted oversight. Can we have more monitors on ground to ensure that you guys, can we get access to these other facilities? So have we exhausted oversight and verification? Can diplomacy and inspections be tightened? I believe so. Is the risk of misjudgment worth a nuclear rollback? Because again, don't forget, a reason why a lot of countries tend to deal with nuclear energy, because it's cheap. You get a lot of energy made cheaply, and which helps the citizens of our nation. Don't forget, America, we have a couple of nuclear energy facilities that are in commission. And then we also have some that has been decommissioned. So I ask you guys these questions because I believe it's very important. Is Iran proven to build a nuke? No. Are they letting inspectors in? Partially, because key sites have been visited pre-strike, but Iran suspended enhanced inspection protocols. What's unknown or hidden? Now, the potential unknown sites, past undeclared materials, and suspended access to some areas raises questions and also raises those red flags. Pros of a strike, there could be pros of this strike that America has done. Immediate delay of trying to create a nuclear bomb, deterrence, and show of support for Israel, no less. But what are the cons? No legal, justifiable basis, regional backlash, ecological and political fallout, and possibly all-out war that could lead to World War III, with many countries going to war with one another. Diplomatic path viability, or diplomatic path viable. Yes, it's still there, but inspections need full access, political buy-in, and restored trust. Now, they say they will retaliate. I hope Iran does not retaliate. I know we can't expect any nation to be attacked and not retaliate, and saying that this is an act of war. Any country around the world can say death to America. Whatever that may be, that's an empty comment if no one backs it up. Do you think that Vietnam is happy with America? Do not forget the Vietnam War, and the North won, by the way. Do you believe Japan is happy with America? There's a sentence of Japanese people still remember those 2 nuclear bombs we dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. This isn't just about bombs. This isn't just about bombs. It's about verification over violence. Without clear proof of intent, a military strike could escalate an inferno when the embers of peace still glow. Because before this strike, there was still an inroad, there was still a route, there was still a way that we could probably open up Iran to more inspections, tighter security measures, or inspectors on ground gaining access to a lot of these places that they didn't have access to before. And granted, I know we've been trying for years to get access, but this always should be the last resort. Because just think about how many people have been unalive? How many people have been tortured? How many people have been harmed because somebody thought something that was true? How many men and women got divorced? How many girlfriends and boyfriends broke up because you thought something about the other or your partner that was not true? I want you guys to think about that. Because if you make it personal, it makes more sense. Oh, you think the other person is cheating. We think Iran has capabilities and they're closing and they're trying to create a nuclear bomb. So let's bomb them. Let's stop them in their tracks. Your significant other thinks you're cheating. So they get a divorce or they break up with you. And you wasn't. I'm just thinking about it like that because the watchdogs, they want access to these sites. Watching, waiting, and verifying. This may not seem decisive, but is the only path that preserves credibility, peace, and potentially saves lives. It potentially saves lives. Lives of the Iranians, lives of the Israelites, lives of Americans. If Russia get involved, lives of the Russians. I don't think people are not looking at human capital. You think that these governments are just going back and forth bombing each other, that no innocent civilians will ever get harmed? Let me tell you, for a person who's been deployed a couple of times, innocent civilians, unfortunately, during war and conflict, always get harmed. And that war and strikes, unprovoked, shall always be the last measure that any country, whether you're powerful or not, should take before we have concrete evidence of the alleged by the Mossad as well as the CIA be verified evidence and have proof. Diplomacy shall always be your first and last decision, unless the intelligence has been verified and proof that this is the road they're taking, and we stop them dead in their tracks. Other than that, we should continue to talk, open up doors, have more strict guidelines, have more monitoring, and people who are analyzing the situation, people on ground who are inspecting some of the facilities, and be allowed to go into some of those facilities.
But so far, we have no reports of any deaths. We have no reports of any injuries, and we have no reports even of any damage. It is still early, but Richard Engel, I want to go back to you. What does that tell us about this retaliatory strike from Iran?
Well, at this stage, it looks like it was a symbolic kind of strike, with Iran making a lot of noise about it, bragging about it, making a lot of statements, but attacking a target that is very well defended, isolated, trying to calibrate their response. The New York Times is reporting just now, citing 3 officials in Iran, that Qatar was informed ahead of time and that this was a symbolic attack. And Iran has done this in the past. When Iran carried out its missile strikes against Israel about a year ago now, they telegraphed what they were doing because they did not want to escalate it further than they believed they needed to. So when they launched drones against Israel, they told the world they were announcing drones. They told the world and the Israelis how the drones were coming to the country, their flight path, that they would be followed up by different weapon systems, missiles. So the Iranians initially telegraphed their operations. No, we don't have confirmation that they telegraphed them in this case, but the kind of strike, the target that was chosen, the fact that nothing got through, the fact that the Qataris had advance warning to close their airspace, that American and British nationals had already been told to shelter in place and were already taking precautions on the base and for the civilians in the country, indicates that they had some advanced knowledge, advanced intelligence, and that they were able to successfully stop what I think you can fairly easily describe as a symbolic response.
Because the most important thing in this world are the people.